I was very fortunate as a Member of Parliament for over 12 years of not really having to worry about the cost of domestic airfares because the taxpayer paid for it all. But I must admit, I was trying to always do my best to get value for the taxpayer, and even though you could fly business class if it was Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide leg, I would fly economy because I thought that was a fair go for the Australian taxpayer. And when I became a leader of the United Australia Party during the last election campaign, I had Mr. Palmer's private jet at my disposal to fly around the country. So it came a bit of a shock to lose all those special privileges and to get back and able to fly like the general public after the last election. But I always tried to support Rex Airlines because I knew if Rex Airlines weren't in the game, that it'd be back to the bad old days of the two airline duopoly and the consumers would get slugged. Well, unfortunately, Rex is no longer in business, no longer flying those legs out of Sydney. So we're stuck with two tour choices, effectively. Qantas or Jetstar, both owned by, of course, Qantas, or Virgin Airlines. Now, I've never been a great fan of Qantas. I even cut up my Qantas card at one stage in protest about Mr. Joyce's conduct about how he was treating some of his employees, especially during the COVID period. So here's what I'm doing, Mr. Joyce. I'm going to give up going to any of your lounges. I'm going to cut your Qantas Chairman's Lounge card in little pieces because I'm not going to go into one of your lounges and sit there and take the hospitality of a company that is an abuser of human rights. I've had a couple of very bad experiences on a Jetstar flight. So I thought recently I'd try to support Virgin Airlines. But the other day, I want to tell you a story of how I got stung by Virgin and how I felt that I was ripped off on their baggage charges. Now, I was flying across to Perth for the Libertarian Party's grand launch over there, for their election campaign launch for the state election. And the Libertarian Party were good enough to help book those tickets for me. But I didn't check on that because Virgin have actually changed their policies. I always thought Virgin, as it used to always be on Rex, if you paid your fare, you were given one piece of baggage allowance. You allowed one check on baggage. But Virgin apparently recently changed that thing, where they now give you a extra charge if you want to take a piece of check on baggage. Now, I've got no great objection to that. That should be the market working. If it's an additional cost for Virgin to check your bag in, which you do it yourself anyway, to put it on the plane and to pull it off the plane, and they want to charge you an extra fee for that, fair enough. That's the market working. And I looked online, and the fee flying to Perth for an extra for a piece of baggage was So the costs were for the flight only $293 just for the airfare. If you want to take a piece of baggage to check in, that was an extra $37. So $37 seems fair enough. And that made the total fare $330 with a piece of check-in luggage and $293 without. Fair enough. Anyhow, the story is, when I got to the airport, and I thought, I'd have to take, of course, a few gift prizes for the raffles and for the auctions for the Libertarian Party. So I took a suitcase that I'd check in and thought that should be fine. This is the way it's always been on Virgin. I got to the airport and find out the ticket I had didn't have that baggage on it. So I thought, okay, fair enough. How much extra do I have to pay? It was $37 if I booked it. Well, it came up on their little ticket counter on display where you check in, an extra $170 for one single bag to take across. So that's $340 to take your bag, a return ticket for your bag. Talk about being ripped off. You have no other option. You just either simply pay it, discard your bag, or forfeit the flight. Now, this is clearly it is clearly a rip-off. You feel as though you have a gun put to your back. This is verging into the territory of an unfair, actually illegal penalty that they are slugging you with. But this is what happens where you don't have the competition, and this is what happens when you have Rex no longer in business, and it's back to those bad old days of the Qantas used to be the Qantas Ansett duopoly, well now it's the Qantas Virgin duopoly. And in fact, you can see here on the screen, even if you wanted to take 2 extra bags with you. So if you paid for one and wanted a second bag to take, they'd still slug you an extra $170. So just think of a couple with two kids, two teenage kids, that are flying on Virgin. They mistakenly don't pay the extra $35 extra for the baggage. They turn up at the airport and they find they're being slugged $170 each, both ways. So what does that work out? For four of them, that works out that, would it be there, four lots of 170, that would be $680 one way, or $1,360 return. For a family of four to take a check-in bag on Virgin. This is just a rip-off. It's not the market. It's not the market working. It is a price gouge. It is Virgin Airlines taking an advantage of a monopoly situation, not fully disclosing these costs up front to consumers, and just ripping them off at the airport. Virgin needs to be called out on this. And yes, to my good libertarian friends, may argue that Virgin have the right to charge whatever they like, but that is correct. But they still have to disclose it. And where the cost is $35 if you pay an extra bag online, to charge you $170 at the airport is nothing other than a rip-off, and needs to be called out. But unfortunately, you won't find any of our current members of Parliament complaining about Virgin or Qantas, because they're all up enjoying all the luxuries and privileges in the luxury lounges of both those two airlines. But perhaps there's a message in this for us all anyway. If we look at the way some of our airlines have been handling our bags that we check in, maybe it's best to have hand carry only.
Handle with care. These baggage handlers must have missed the memo. Suitcases hurled from head height, some crashing onto conveyor belts. Other suitcases hurled from head height, some crashing onto conveyor belts. Others missing the belt entirely and slamming onto the ground. The incident at Melbourne Airport is now the subject of an investigation.
Really, really disrespectful and disappointing.
Qantas, whom the trio was working for, says it's no laughing matter.
We're quite shocked when we...
It's not the first time baggage handlers have been in hot water. Just last month, this staffer was filmed throwing luggage onto a trailer in WA.